got no strings, as you can see. There are no strings on... Oh, crap. You want rematch? The Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Hulk came out in the same year as Iron Man and The Dark Knight. And betwixt the two, unfortunately The Incredible Hulk kind of got lost in the fray. And that's not completely justifiable if you ask me. This film has polarised quite a few audiences. You have people who really like it, who say it is better than Ang Lee's Hulk, and then you have others who completely decry it, or at least say that it's not as good as Ang Lee's Hulk. Personally, I fall into the camp of, yes, I like this movie, just as much as I liked the first Hulk movie. And, you know, both of them are completely different beasts. The only thing they really have in common is the main character, Bruce Banner. Now, what I liked about The Incredible Hulk is that it is not an origin story. It is not a reboot, so to speak. It does actually function as a sequel to the first film. You see Bruce Banner continue to live his life with this brand new affliction of his, and he is steadily growing used to it. He's becoming more and more aware of his limitations and what it takes to, you know, keep control of himself. And then you have the bright idea of the military kind of synthesizing another sort of serum for the soldiers. So enter Emil Blonsky, played by Tim Roth. Might I say, one of the best sequences in this movie is the throwdown between Hulk and Abomination towards the end of the movie. Even if you don't like the rest of the film, like, that's fine, but to say that that fight had absolutely nothing going for it, come on, let's not lie to each other here. It is actually a genuinely good fight. And the thing is that you could actually see what was going on. You could see every single enormous meaty fist like pounding and smashing and going into a wall and that sort of thing. You know, it was very visceral. And that's what you would want from a, you know, a behemoth kind of fight. The Abomination is no slouch when it comes to these things. And if you ask me, the Hulk versus the Abomination is an equal matchup, and is one of the better sort of beatdowns in the Marvel Universe history. But look, this film isn't just about fights, and it's not just about, you know, it's not just about the physicality. Another thing I do credit this film on is that it still takes the time to be more of a character study for Bruce Banner. Now, it doesn't start off at square one, like, you know, quite a few other films tend to do, like in terms of sequels and whatnot. We've established his limitations, we've established what sort of man he is. Now he's just, you know, continuing to live his life. And may I say, Edward Norton as Bruce Banner is quite a fascinating choice. I'm a huge fan of Edward Norton. I think he is a very good actor, and most of the time, I find him compulsively watchable. He has his detractors, that's fine, that's not the point here. So, his Bruce Banner is very quiet, and he's a very sort of reflexive person. He thinks on what he does, he contemplates what he is all about. He's trying to find a way to keep himself in control, but he's starting to come to terms that nothing will ever be the same again. And it's a very difficult time he's going through. He's still adjusting to his powers, and, you know, the last thing he wants to do is hurt anyone. But this being a Hulk film, like, when push comes to shove, the Hulk comes out. And I feel that Edward Norton manages to nail that sort of, you know, that low-key sort of attitude, as well as somebody who's dangerously unstable. There's no bubble at the end of that. Dangerously unstable. And then you have Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky. Tim Roth, as we all know, has made a career of playing bad guys. He has been some of the best bad guys ever committed to celluloid, bar none. Now, Emil Blonsky may not necessarily be in that high echelon of villainy, but he still does a pretty damn good job. I'm not really a big Hulk person, but as with quite a few other heroes, I recognise his significance and what he means to comics, and same goes for the villains in his stories. And the Abomination is, he may not be as top tier as perhaps Red Hulk is, but he still offers a worthy threat to the character. And when you have Tim Roth versus Edward Norton, that's a really good match. And once again, it all comes back down to how the actors handle their performances. And in this case, Tim Roth is good as Blonsky. Which kind of brings me to their CGI avatars. Once again, let's face it, how do you make a jolly green giant, or not so jolly green giant, and the Abomination look natural? You can't really do that. So, for people to say that they did not look normal, like having their throwdown in the middle of a city and whatnot, it's kind of redundant because it takes away from the spectacle. And that's what visual effects should do. Visual effects should add to a spectacle, but not become a spectacle themselves. And you've got to make allowances for these sorts of things. And in the case of how Roth's and Norton's likenesses are sort of, you know, imagined as these creatures, as these manifestations of rage and every single negative emotion you can think of, it's a respectable job. Now for Liv Tyler, forgive me, but look, I do like Liv Tyler. I think she can be really damn good if she's given the right script. She is not without talent, trust me when I say that. But when I think of Betty Ross, I still tend to think of Jennifer Connelly in the role. Here, Liv Tyler more or less is very reactive to Norton's character. She is reactive to what is going on around her. She isn't necessarily proactive in what she does. And, you know, that's not Tyler's fault. That more or less comes down to the script and how it treats the character of Betty Ross. And, truth be told, Betty isn't given that much to do. And that is a shame, because Betty Ross is just as important to the Hulk as anything else. She is his Achilles heel. But sadly, she's mainly, you know, blindsided by the Hulk and by the Abomination. I feel that a good Hulk movie should take advantage of a character like Betty Ross. Betty is brilliant. She's understanding is another thing. Like, imagine if your beloved like turned into a great big scary monster at a moment's notice. That the moment they start to feel a tinge of, you know, anger, you gotta give it up to somebody who's able to sort of like you know, stand up to that person and try to speak reason and sense into them. So I would have liked to have seen more Betty Ross in this film. I would have liked to have seen more done with the character, because I feel she deserves it. The director, Louis Leterrier, yeah, he did a pretty decent job. As far as I'm aware, I've only seen one of his other films, and that was The Transporter, if memory serves. So The Transporter and The Incredible Hulk are two very different beasts, just like the Hulk and the Abomination. And I feel he's got a decent eye for a comic book movie. I wouldn't say no if he decided to, you know, adopt another project in the future. But once again, it all comes down to it being a collaborative effort. But strictly speaking, from a style and film perspective, Leterrier does a very respectable job. And I don't see how, you know, his work could be considered completely as a negative. Working on a film is a very interactive process. It demands the attention and the time of everybody involved. It doesn't just fall down to one singular entity. So I feel The Incredible Hulk does its job. It doesn't have, it's not without its flaws, I'll grant you that. But here's the thing. If you are looking for something that's a lot more in-depth in terms of character, check out Hulk. If you want your Hulk with some action, with some nice character moments, you get The Incredible Hulk. So yeah, that's more or less my general thoughts on this movie. It had been a while since I've seen it. I remember seeing it at the theatre, and I've seen it like once or twice on Blu-ray. But all of those 3 times, I didn't mind it. I find it I found it cohesive. I more or less followed the story. I understood the villain motivations. I understood what Bruce was going through and his objectives. Oh, yeah, and yes, I also like the reference that at one point Bruce tried to kill himself because he found he couldn't cope with his personality. That's some pretty dark subject matter considering it's just a comic book movie. When you're dealing with something as, you know, downright depressing and terrible as suicide, you've got to handle it with a sense of sensitivity. And the Incredible Hulk manages to do that, I found. So on that note, that concludes my Incredible Hulk, and I shall see you again for Iron Man 2. That's going to be fascinating. Considering the reputation that film has in comparison to Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 3, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge to deconstruct. But I am up for the task. Bye bye guys, and you take care of yourselves and each other. Bye bye now for now.